Mind putting your mask back on?
Super hard to eat while I'm wearing it.
It's super hard to eat when you're not.
Huh. Paul Rudd finally aged.
Welcome back, everyone. It's pizza time. There's a brand new Deadpool and Wolverine scene, or a couple of scenes, with a couple really big Easter eggs. A lot of zoom and enhanced moments going on during this. Yes, there's a lot of funny moments of them taking the piss out of each other, like Wolverine making fun of Deadpool being super ugly, like, could you put your mask on? Then Deadpool breaking the fourth wall again to reference real-life actor Paul Rudd, also recognizing that the MCU is a fictional group of movies that Marvel is making. But there's also a really big Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Easter egg going on in the background, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos.
Pizza time.
Apparently, this longer clip is actually playing in the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer in theaters. It's like a longer version of the trailer they released online, and these scenes appear during that. But that first clip is just meant to show you some of the funny energy between them, like what the vibe is going to be like for a lot of the movie, with them completely making fun of each other, not being total friends, but like slowly growing a little bit closer. Ryan Reynolds was posting as Deadpool, saying that it was them just bonding. Wolverine making fun of him for his very terrible looking face. He should feel a little bit worse because that's the cancer that makes his face look like that. There's always a ton of questions about that too. If Deadpool has such a powerful healing factor, why hasn't it completely healed his face to what it used to look like before he got cancer? Like, why doesn't it completely get rid of the cancer? The actual canonical answer for that is that Deadpool's healing factor wasn't activated till after he got cancer, so his healing factor just heals him back to his base state when it was activated. And when it was activated, this is what his face looked like. So anytime his face gets messed up or he gets blown up into pieces, he heals back to this state. Technically, the healing factor also just regrows all the cancer he had in this state and just sort of keeps him in this alive state. So theoretically, the only way to actually heal his face would be for them to turn off his healing factor, like basically nullify his mutant powers, have another mutant completely heal him, and then turn his healing factor back on. But the actual Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Easter egg that everybody's talking about is actually from Joe's Pizza at the beginning of his Spider-Man 2 movie. If you look in the background and you flip the shot, like you have to flip it because the text is the other way around, look at the menu that's written on the window. There's a bunch of Joe's special dishes. So it looks like they're in Joe's restaurant from the Joe's Pizza shop at the beginning of Spider-Man 2, or a version of that from another universe.
This 29-minute guarantee is a promise, man.
Serious to me too, Mr. Aziz.
You're fired. Go.
Please, I need this job.
You're fired.
Or give me another chance.
Like we have Joe's Easy Omelet, 45 cents, French toast and eggs, breakfast sandwiches, 85 cents, coffee, 15 cents, specials, Joe's Famous Chili Bowl, 65 cents, Philly cheesesteak sandwiches, 85 cents. So it kind of seems like they're in a version of Joe's Pizza from Spider-Man 2, but either in another universe where this is in the past because all the prices are like a tenth of what they would be in present day with all of modern day inflation. Like there's no way you could go to New York City and buy a breakfast sandwich at a normal restaurant for 85 cents. Maybe like 50 years ago. But the actual font here looks similar to Joe's font during the pizza place at the beginning of Spider-Man 2, so it just seems like they're going for a lot of Spider-Man 2 Easter eggs here, and there were rumors that Mr. Aziz was actually going to cameo during the movie in some way as a variant. If you look in the background of this too, I can't tell if this is on the Void, like if this restaurant just exists on the Void planet and is still operating, because it looks like a normal diner restaurant, they're just having some food and some drink there. It could either be happening on the Void or it could be happening on another Earth as they're traveling across the multiverse. I guess it could make sense if a version of Joe's Pizza place got pruned at some point in the past, like the distant past of New York City.
Stop! Stop! Parker, you're late, man. Always late, huh?
I'm sorry, Mr. Aziz. There was a disturbance.
The other Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Easter egg a lot of people spotted in the previous trailer is when Deadpool and Wolverine are fighting each other, Deadpool actually pulls some Tobey Maguire Spider-Man moves from the first Spider-Man movie when he was ducking and weaving around Flash Thompson. As far as I've heard, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man himself is not supposed to appear in any of the cameos during the movie. There were a bunch of reshoots that they started doing recently for a little while to add even more cameos based on the ones that we saw in the trailers. And obviously there meant to be a lot of cameos in the movie that they're not going to be putting in the trailers, like hidden cameos and Easter eggs. I don't think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is supposed to come back until at least Avengers Secret Wars. I talked a lot about the history of his attempted crossovers with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and the X-Men characters. It goes way back to before Tobey Maguire ever became Spider-Man in the first place. Way back when Fox was making that first X-Men 2000 movie, Hugh Jackman was busy becoming Wolverine for the first time. Sony was still trying to figure out their first big Spider-Man movie. They'd gone to James Cameron. He was going to have Leonardo DiCaprio be his version of Spider-Man in the 90s. That didn't wind up working out. There's a bunch of fascinating stories about what was going to happen in James Cameron's version of Spider-Man. Like, that's where the organic web shooters came from with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. James Cameron is the one that came up with that idea instead of using the mechanical web shooters. It's one of the few details that survived from his movies when they eventually did Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. So when they were making the first X-Men movie, they wanted to have a gag, and they had a Spider-Man cameo in the background. This is not Tobey Maguire because he hadn't been cast as Spider-Man yet when this happened.
Wait! I am completely in the wrong movie. I am so sorry.
But because Sony and Fox were talking about doing a crossover between Spider-Man and the X-Men because they were so popular, they just decided to try this out. It was just meant to be a funny gag, which is why it only wound up on the blooper reel, and it was basically like a deleted scene from the movie. Like, there was no way they were going to let this go in the movie. Within a couple years, they hired Sam Raimi, then they found Tobey Maguire, they made their Spider-Man movie. But during that movie, because a couple years had gone by and the first X-Men movie blew up so big, like everybody loved it so much, became so popular, Fox and Sony had worked out a deal to have a crossover between Hugh Jackman's Wolverine because he had become so popular himself within the X-Men. He was going to show up in New York City and cross over with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, but he was going to be in his Wolverine suit, like the black leather suit. We got a bunch of Easter eggs about that recently, too, on X-Men 97.
Almost forgot.
Oh, am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
On the day that they were going to film Hugh Jackman's Wolverine scene with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I think it was either the suit did not arrive or the suit wouldn't work, like they couldn't get it to do what they wanted it to do, so they elected not to do the crossover cameo scene if they couldn't do him in the suit for some reason. It sounds kind of like a stupid reason not to do a cameo scene because so much of Wolverine later in the movies was him not in that black leather suit. But if you've seen a lot of fan art like this here with Wolverine in his black leather suit and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, that's what that's referencing, is their crossover that never wound up happening that now they can finally pay off in Avengers Secret Wars. No coincidence that it just happens to be the anniversary of this hit tweet by Sony announcing Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 4. I'm hoping that they never wind up deleting this because when they release Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4, they're going to have some opportunities for a lot of jokes. The other big Easter egg here, too, is obviously the big Paul Rudd joke about him not aging.
Huh. Paul Rudd finally aged.
So also notice here, zoom in and enhance, Deadpool and Wolverine walk up to the dead Ant-Man base of theirs. Wolverine also has Deadpool's two adamantium swords, B and Arthur, still sticking through his body when they walk up, as if it's no big deal, because his healing factor just working overtime to close the wounds. I think it's also meant to be an Easter egg for this comic book panel, too, where he's got all the katanas sticking out of him after a big battle. Reminder again that the TVA gives him upgraded katanas that are adamantium, which is why they're able to block Wolverine's claws. It seems like the timeline here is that they fight in front of the wreckage of that 20th Century Fox sign that got pruned, sent to the TVA, all the other stuff that got pruned there in the background. I'm sure there'll be all kinds of Easter eggs in the background, like I think there's a Vancouver landmark in the background too. They fight each other and it just goes on and on and on because they both have adamantium, they both have healing factors, so they just wear each other out until that roving band of Mad Max evil X-Men that Cassandra Nova is controlling, like her evil X-Men team, show up on all their Mad Max vehicles that are Easter eggs from other Marvel movies. They eventually capture them and just bring them back to the dead Ant-Man base. So that's why they walk up and Wolverine still has Deadpool's sword sticking out of him from their battle. This whole joke about Paul Rudd finally aging is all because Deadpool knows he's a fictional character in a movie because he's breaking the fourth wall and the fifth wall sometimes too. He knows that the MCU Marvel movies are fictional stories starring real-life actor Paul Rudd, who people in real life started saying doesn't age because it almost looks like he started getting younger about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. Deadpool has also referenced the MCU itself in the previous trailers.
I smell what you're stepping in, Sensei. Your little cinematic universe is about to change forever. I'm the Messiah. I am Marvel Jesus.
That's him basically joking that he's going to essentially mess with the MCU, reboot the MCU, so to speak. That sort of gets into Marvel's larger plan to actually do a soft reboot on all the Marvel movies after Avengers Secret Wars. So I think he's going to be messing with the MCU timeline, so to speak. Like he's going to be dipping into a lot of the previous Marvel movies and messing with previous moments. Sort of the way he did at the end of Deadpool 2, but with MCU movies. That's probably why you see all these scenes from the previous Avengers movies, the previous Captain America movies, like other Marvel movies on screen here at the TVA. Here's where it'll start to break your brain though, like where it gets really meta. When you think about whether or not Deadpool thinks of himself as real-life Ryan Reynolds playing the fictional character Deadpool, like he knows that he's a fictional character in a movie, like he knows the Deadpool movie is just a fake movie, but does he know that he's also Ryan Reynolds, a real-life actor, playing the Deadpool character? Because in the past, especially in the comics, like this actually started because of what they did in the comics, he's made jokes about Ryan Reynolds speaking of him as if he was not the actor. That actual Easter egg happened before the first Deadpool movie, and it kind of inspired Ryan Reynolds to become the Deadpool character. Like Deadpool joked about Ryan Reynolds before Ryan Reynolds ever became Deadpool. Then there's the Deadpool 2 post-credit scene, and they've already explained that that's all canon to what's happening in this new Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And in that post-credit scene, he kills Ryan Reynolds before he could make Green Lantern, but that was also long before he made the first Deadpool movie, this version of Deadpool that he's playing, killing himself. Meaning if he were the real Ryan Reynolds under the mask, he'd be killing himself before he was created and thus wouldn't exist anymore. So if he's still alive after this, he'd have to technically not believe that he is Ryan Reynolds, the real-life actor. There's a couple other ways to explain it, but I think part of the idea is they're trying to avoid ever fully answering the question and just clowning on it because it's supposed to be super confusing and meta, and that is the joke. The other way you could technically explain it, and it would still all make sense within the logic that they've established in the previous Marvel movies and shows. During Avengers Endgame, and then during the Loki series, the way they explain time travel and variance is that you can't change your own past, you can only create alternate futures. For example, Loki during the events of the first Loki season becomes a variant when he takes the Tesseract and goes off-book, creating a new branch timeline that the TVA prunes before it can actually turn into like a fully alternate universe and then takes him back to the TVA too. If that Loki were to go back into the MCU main timeline and kill the original version of Loki before Thanos killed him, it wouldn't completely erase himself from existence, he would still exist. Because killing the original wouldn't kill the variants. Remember, you can't change your past, you can only create new branch timelines. So if you're going by Loki rules here, Deadpool himself could kill any version of Ryan Reynolds before he ever became Deadpool in the movies, and it wouldn't erase this Deadpool from existence. Early on, before they released the first trailer and kind of explained what was going on during the movie, a lot of people thought that that was what was actually going on with the TVA arresting him when they dropped that first trailer. Like, oh, they clearly saw him messing with Cable's time travel device, messing with all the timelines, creating all these Nexus events, all these different variants. In reality, I wouldn't worry too much about all the different variants, the different timelines, Deadpool killing versions of himself. It's mostly just meant to be funny jokes on the previous Deadpool movies, like Deadpool clowning on Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool clowning on himself. But if you really like the Disney jokes, the Kevin Feige jokes, like Deadpool clowning on the MCU itself, like calling out the MCU in moments from previous Marvel movies during this, there'll be a lot more during the actual movie.
Want to do some cocaine?
Hey, cocaine is the one thing that Feige said is off limits.
What about Bolivian marching powder?
They know all the slang terms. They have a list.
If there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted in the new footage that I didn't talk about in this video, write it below in the comments. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. James Gunn literally just posted the first look at the full new Superman suit that David Cornswet is wearing in the movie. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the background too, so I'll try to do a video for that as quickly as possible. That should be up by tomorrow morning. We're also right in the middle of the X-Men 97 multi-part finale. My episode 9 video will post on Wednesday, so make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that because it has been total fire. It has been amazing. Everybody click here for all my X-Men 97 episodes and click here to learn about Ben Affleck coming back to the Marvel Universe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.